my father played football, and when I was young, there just seemed to be a lot of boys around the area playing football. So I started playing with them, got into the game, and as I grew older, continued playing, joined the girls' team. Yeah, where I live in Germiston was the men's team. Germiston Kelly started a team, started playing provincial for 10 years, then got into coaching, and then started developing multiracial women's football, firstly. And then finally, after 10 years working at my car boot, I got SAFA to employ me in 99, coached Banyana 2000, and then things rolled from then, started a high performance center. I've had it for 18 years. It produces all the players now who are big stars, the Lindas, the Tembis, Janines, whatever, Pumi. So it's been a long road, but I'm now seeing the rewards, and I can see the players reaping the benefits. The coaches, all the coaches of the national teams are women, so I can see now everything coming to fruition for women's football. Very unstructured, really. And there was a football body, and I got involved in that, called South African Women Football Association. I got involved there, eventually became the president. But the football had mainly been structured with white women, colored women from the Cape area. So I made it my business, with specifically with a man called Joseph Mkonza, to get the black women involved, because they obviously were playing, but it wasn't unified, and we did that. And then when SAFA uh, came into operation in 93 or whatever, we came with our body and joined them, and tried to get, of course, then the national team going, which we did as a SAFA national team. There'd always been a national team, but with the apartheid and the suspension from FIFA, we couldn't play in FIFA World Cup. So we then got a team going that could affiliate to FIFA, which we did, but always struggling. No kit, no money, no nothing. We had old Bafana kit. The girls had no boots. It was very difficult. Traveled with no money. It was really taxing. But it grew, and now I think it's probably one of the biggest sports for women in the country. I worked for FIFA since 2001, doing coaching development around the world. And I saw overseas, especially in America, that academies are very big. So I came back, as I say, 18 years ago, and I started one at Tux University in Pretoria, where the players, Banyana, Basetsana, Bantwana, all of them can come and stay and go to school, get a good education, get medical treatment, have a nutrition, it said all those things that you really need. And that, I feel, has contributed massively to the success of all the teams. Banyana now going to their first World Cup. I waited 20 years for that. They went to 2 Olympics. We've got 19 professional players. The bulk of them come from the HPC. The under 17s have been twice to the World Cup, and nearly all the players came from there. So it's really paid off for the players, because they get development in every aspect of life: education, health, nutrition. So, yeah, very worthwhile. The only one in Africa, actually. It's the only one of its kind. It's the only one in South Africa of its kind. And the fact that it's produced so many top players gives credence to the value of it. But we certainly would like something similar in every province, because you can only accommodate, we have 25 girls, whereas the boys' academy can take, I think, about 200. So we certainly need far more academies. And yes, it produces the bulk of the national team players, but you need more scope for more girls. So we hope one day it will be able to expand. The time I was traveling around in my own car, scouting, looking for players. So I picked up players around the country. And then we had to look for players, of course, who had an average education, because the education there is 100% matric pass rate. So we had to try and balance between a good education and a good football player. So it wasn't easy, but we managed to, as I say, find a good crop. And I think the first crop was a group that still today, you have Janine van Wyk. She was in the first intake. Pumi and Denny, one of them, Carly and Lowe, is a coach in America. um, so it was difficult and getting everyone to blend in together, but we managed. And as I say, it's still going 18 years later. When they're 13, 14, they come into high school at Tux. We put them into the high school. Luckily, in recent years, Tux has built their own school, a magnificent school there. So the players are selected based on their education level and football level. And they come then, we feel they're mature enough to come. They've had time with their parents or grandparents or whoever they live with. And they come then from grade 8 and go through to matric. And then the bulk of them go on to university, because, as I say, the university snap them up because they high caliber in every aspect. Of course, the funding is very difficult because it's a 5-star place. So initially the lotto came in for a year or two, but it's been a huge struggle to keep it going, because it's as I say, a 5-star environment with its own school, gym, medical facilities. So very difficult to get funding. Even women's football, Banyana, the only sponsor we have had for many, many years has been Cecil. And now, luckily, Hollywood Bets has come on to do the league. But it's been a big problem getting sponsorship for women's football. And we're hoping now, with the players becoming more professional, it's going to attract more sponsors, especially ones who make women's products, hair stuff, stockings, whatever, that they come along and sponsor all women's sports, not just women's football. I said the fact that we have so many players now overseas, so many players at university, many of them on scholarships. I think that thinking is, in my opinion, definitely changed. I think so. We still have to get, of course, school football going for girls and boys in all the schools, because that's the nursery. So we need to keep developing on that level to ensure that girls get a chance to play football at school, where it's easy. They don't have to walk around by themselves. So I think slowly the mental thinking, the mentality is changing, and girls' football has become popular, and we have big role models now. Big role models, the Timbys, the Lindas, the Janine, Rafilwi, Johnny. They're massive role models. We had in previous times the Portia Modise still, that attract women to come and play football. used to have provincial technical officers. It kind of was stopped after Neil and I left SAFA, but we used to have provincial technical officers, men and women in the 9 provinces. They would look out for players. I had a huge network when I was at SAFA who would phone me and say, we found this 13, 14-year-old, which was the age we were looking for. And then I'd go and look at them or send someone to look at them. And then if they were of the caliber, we would bring them for trials at the HPC and, of course, testing on the schooling level, etc. Well, truthfully, no. It was always a struggle. I think women's football is seen as an expense at most levels. So I had to struggle. I can't say I was ever given an easy ride. No. Everything was a struggle, getting leagues, getting the national team going, getting kit, getting boots. The boots is still an ongoing story. Sharing boots, sharing kit. It was always extremely difficult in all aspects. I must say that I struggled. I can never say I had an easy ride now. I've raised continuously on the CAF technical committees. CAF doesn't play enough competition and African teams don't play enough. Hence, we used to have 2 places in the Olympics, and because the African teams did badly, they actually took away 1 place. And now we have to play off against one of the North American people to get into the Olympics. So we've actually gone a step backwards. Fortunately, in the African Women Cup of Nations, we've got another slot. But without teams playing continuously that are in Africa, it's extremely difficult to do well at the World Cup. I mean, or the Olympics. I remember Zimbabwe qualified for the Olympics and they played 1 friendly against us. And you have America playing 153 friendlies. So Africa, because of distance, proximity, finances, so many reasons, the teams just do not play enough games. And then you send them off like Zambia now went to the Olympics, having played 2 or 3 friendlies, and you must compete. It's not possible. But I know that if these teams had the opportunity to compete like the European teams, American teams, we would have won a World Cup donkeys years ago in Africa. We have, in Africa, I've always said it, I'll keep saying it, Africa is a sleeping giant and we're waking up, but we don't have the finances and often the interest from the MAs. But we have some of the best players in the world. That's a fact. Players like Assi Satishola being nominated. I was there. She won the best player of the Under-20 World Cup in Canada. That tells you we have some of the best players, but we don't compete in Africa. And if you don't compete, you can't compete. And that's why we need to have far more funding to Africa to play more friendlies. CAF needs to have not just the African Women Cup of Nations, they need that every 2 years. Now we have the Champions League for the first time. That's a big step forward. But we need competition so that we can compete with Europe and the rest of the world because we are equal on performance. Very difficult. There's not much happening at many LFAs. It's basically a lot of the teams that succeed or do well, it's because there's someone who's a committed manager, coach, who's driving the process. I think that's how it's always been. If I look back on teams I've known around wherever, any province, whatever, It's always been down to one or two people who've driven the process, and it's still like that. And all I can do is try and advise people. Um, some LFAs have leagues, some don't. Some have SASL, some have uh, regional leagues. It varies from region to region. So it really is up to an individual to try and make a difference. And I try and help them as much as possible with coaching tips, um, that kind of thing. But it's not easy. It's not as structured as it should be. There isn't national school football. That's a big problem, that has to be addressed. That football is available in the schools to girls and boys or nationally. I think if you Google it and see the statistics, the TV coverage, the following of games, I don't have it at hand now, was unbelievable. How many people watched some of the big teams play, the final, the semi-final. France, of course, watching them. The USA have always had a massive following. So I think women's football is so huge in the world now, and FIFA are pumping so much money into it. They give every federation money. They have so many development projects. I did a lot of work for them around the world in developing countries. They want to develop football. So I think the World Cup, which was shown here in South Africa on all the DSTV, whatever, all the games were shown. It was unbelievable. People could watch the highest level of women's football and see Banyana playing live on TV in their first World Cup. So women's football's just on the up and up of that, there's no doubt. I knew it would. Whenever I used to go to FIFA World Cups, I haven't missed one since 2001. I've been to every one. And I'd always tell all my colleagues there from the big football countries, England, USA, Sweden, whatever, I'd always say, we've got the best players in the world in South Africa. And they'd always say, our Fran is always raving about her players. And I knew once we got to the Olympics, which we did, and we got to the World Cup, I knew that our players would be snapped up because we're skillful, we intelligent players, we tactically aware, and that's what's happened now. We have 19 playing overseas, and some like, as I said, Tembi at the top clubs in the world. Rafael Wijani, Linda Motlalo, Sweden, Spain. We have players playing at the highest level, making money out of women's football. So for me, it's a dream come true to see the woman making a living out of football, a good living, and being able to succeed at the highest level. I think we can't get away from it. The European leagues are still far ahead of Africa. You take a country like Nigeria, who's played at the Women's World Cup since the first one in 91. I think they've got in the top 10 once at the World Cup because in Africa, we just do not compete at a high level. The leagues in Africa are not as strong as Europe. The leagues in Europe are so competitive. The national teams are so competitive, and a lot of that's due to proximity. In Europe, you can catch a train from England to London to Germany to Sweden, so they can play competitively, so they're always challenged. Whereas in Africa, for us to go and play a friendly against Nigeria, it's a mission from hell, very costly, and not possible to play neighboring countries easily. So for our players to play at Barcelona, AC Milan, these are the big women's teams. That gives us the edge when these players come back, and that's been made clear when the Tembis come to play now presently. Linda, Rafael Widani, now versus Mozambique yesterday, they're all scoring. Then Sasol sponsored the Sasol League, which was massive in keeping the national players active. That was a massive plus. The Sasol League, prior to that, we also had Sanlam, we had Vodacom League. So those things, APSA, those things kind of gave the national team players something to do and play. And it was from those leagues in general that we picked the players for the national team. And of course, from the various academies like JVW, Sunflower that are already established. But the HPC is the one, I mean, if you look now at the biggest names in the women's football, the Temi Kgatlana is now the top African player in Africa. She's now overtaken Assisata Schwale, who was the best African player for a long time. It's now Tembi, and she comes from the academy. Janine van Dijk is still the highest cap player. She's from the first intake of the academy. Linda Motlala scored now on the weekend. She's from the academy. So academies are the way to go because it enables a player to be developed in every aspect. And education, of course, for me is a crucial thing. And it's paid off. You take one of the players, Simpiwe Dludlu, who was a Banyana captain, comes from HPC, went on to get a bursary to go to university because university snap up all the HPC players because they the best and they well educated. And now you find that UWC, Tux, all these universities snap up the players. And you find that the university league now has progressed so much because they have top class players. And as I said, Simpiwe Dludlu now did a sports science degree and is the under 17 national coach, highly qualified, thanks to women's football. So the whole perspective where parents didn't want their daughters playing football, it's a waste of time, there's no future, what are they going to do? It's been completely overturned because parents can look now and see, hang on, through football, my daughter can go and play overseas. Tembi's just built her parents a beautiful house in Alex, bought them a car. Players have university degrees. So women's football has become a sport now that is in favor for girls, whereas in previous years it wasn't. Has kind of put regulations in place now regarding that, as they did for the men's teams to have junior teams, but the implementation of that is going to be very difficult because it's a huge cost factor. To run a premier men's team is a huge cost factor, and to have boys' teams is also that. So now to add women, it has been regulated by CAF, but it still has to be implemented. So we're waiting to see if that will come about. Probably the most progressive club or two or three progressive clubs in the country are JVW, which is run by Janine van Wyk, the captain of Banyana. That's a massive project, biggest in Africa. They have over 250 teams at all age levels. We have Sunflower in KZN, which produces a lot of the national team players. They have development. We have Cape Town Roses, which also develops a lot of the players. So we have a few, but we would like, of course, the big dream is for all the PSL clubs to have a women's team, to have development, but I think that's still some way off. Sundowns, and it's kind of paid off with the support, etc., because Sundowns now won the first women's league, the Hollywood Bets League, that was introduced last year, and they now are representing South Africa at the first ever wonderful Champions League that is being held next month, which was a dream of mine. I'm on the CAF technical committee, and I've always been pushing for a women's Champions League in Africa, and finally it's come to fruition. And the first one is now in November, where the best clubs from all the like CASAFA, SECAFA, whatever, are coming to play to find the best team in Africa, and that team will go to represent in the FIFA Champions League. So Mamelodi Sundowns is the representative now going forward from CASAFA. So it shows Bloemfontein Celtic, who are now, of course, moved to Durban. They had a women's team. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So these are the few teams that have got a women's club. In recent years, what's really become massive is that teams like Chelsea, Man United, Man City have had and started women's teams, and now they have playing in the league. I remember back in 98 or something, Arsenal already had a team, and I took 4 of our players over there, our best players, Portia Medici, Umi Nyandeni, Antonio Carlsa, and Veronica Pewa, and they were actually signed by Arsenal and played there. So we've been kind of following that, trying to get in there. I'd love to get more players over there in those leagues, but certainly the British clubs have set the trend of having women's teams affiliated to them, and that, of course, is the dream in South Africa, but as I said earlier, quite difficult to implement for a cost factor, I think. They have a massive girls' school soccer leagues, massive. Girls' football is the national sport. They have leagues at all age levels, at school, massive infrastructure, and you have teams from school flying from one of the regions to another every weekend. All the parents go with, they all fly around. I followed it very closely and saw how they do it. And then all the girls are scouted by colleges to come and play the UCLA League, the United College League of America. And football is played at college level, and it's the national sport. It's massive, and that's why since 91, 95, 99, USA won the World Cup and continue to be right up there.